Well, in your opinion, or how in your personal experiences, how do you fight aging? Or could you give us some advice on living a healthier and longer life? Doing exercise?
I do. I do. I'm a pretty fanatical exerciser. I don't take any medications. I don't take any vitamins or supplements or anything like that. But I do exercise. I try to maintain a healthy body weight, and I do both strength exercise and endurance exercise. It's the one thing I'm pretty religious about doing. Um, and then I try to do everything else sensibly. I'm waiting for data before I decide I'm going to try. You know, I've been tempted. I've been tempted to try metformin, but on the other hand, I would kind of like to see the evidence before before I do that.
And we also set a quota for our followers to ask what they want to you. Or so if you would like to answer their questions, I will ask our followers to offer me
Sure,
some of the
sure,
questions. Well, the
sure.
first one is, do you think that to extend our lives means that we need to treat the diseases related to aging?
Well, I think one of the things that the geroscience movement is doing is it's trying to create the best preventative medicine in the world. That is, it's trying to prevent people from getting diseases rather than treating diseases. And certainly we're going to get better and better and better at finding ways to treat diseases. But I think that when we find something that keeps people healthy longer, it will also delay diseases as a group. We won't have to, you know, get our coronary bypass and then 2 years later get cancer and then the year after that get Alzheimer's disease. The idea is that we will push all these diseases back by decades. So I
And
think it will change medical practice. It will be more preventative than curative.
live longer or live healthier? What are the most important ones?
Oh, living healthier, for sure. Um, the hardest thing, I mean, one of the things we don't know, let's imagine we're successful and we've found something that makes us live 20 years longer. Um, if we get an extra 20 years of health, I think everybody would agree that's wonderful. If we get an extra 10 years of health, but an extra 10 years of debility at the end of life, then my thought is that would be attractive to a lot fewer people. You know, they already see people going through some miserable times late in life, and they think, well, doubling that length of time, that's not really something that I'm interested in. One of the things that always surprises me when I give public talks on anti-aging advances, I start asking people, how many people in here, if I had this pill, and if you took it right now, you'd start aging 50% slower than you are now. How many people would take that pill? And usually about 75% raise their hand. And that's a pretty low
75%.
number. Yeah, that's a pretty low number to me because these are people who chose to come to a talk on this topic, right? So these are probably not a random audience. And so people are more ambivalent about living longer than they should be because I think they associate it with, they see a 90-year-old and they say, oh, can I see another 10 or 12 years or 20 years of gradually getting worse than the average 90-year-old? And they say, no, they don't realize that we're talking about is, 60 being the new 90 or something like that. If they thought about it that way, I think a lot more people would be on board with it.
Well, the second question from our followers is that, do you think our life expectancy will be restricted by the Hayflick limit?
No, I don't. I don't because for one thing, we're finding all kinds of ways to get rid of these senescent cells, at least in mice. some of those ways are probably going to translate to people. So I don't think that that's ultimately going to be what limits our life. What I think is going to limit our life is our ability to repair DNA damage.
But
That's
when
what
our telomeres become shorter and shorter, how can we fix on that?
Well, what you can do is you can kill that cell and replace it with another cell that has a longer telomere. And then for the cells that are the most prone, I mean, the cells that are most prone are things like brain cells, neurons, and heart cells, cardiomyocytes. And those cells, because they don't divide during life, they don't get short telomeres. So it's not really a problem for our cells that are at the most risk. You know, our brain cells, our heart cells, our muscle cells, those are the cells that sustain the most damage because they're old cells. You know, they're not continuously replaced.
Thank you. Well, maybe in time flies, we will come to the last question. It is related to the situation or the phenomenon in China. Well, in recent years, healthy aging becomes a national strategy in China, since that the Chinese social aging has become even severe with the development of the society, while Chinese aging research has developed rapidly according to these aspects. But most of our Chinese scientists have limited access to these discoveries. What do you think of China can do to go global?
I think that what happens is that Chinese researchers need to come to a lot of international conferences and exchange ideas with geroscientists from the West, because it's these conferences are not the best thing about scientific conferences is not listening to people give talks, because as we all know today, you can do that by Zoom. You don't need to get together. The most interesting things happen at the coffee, and people talking informally, talking about experiments. You've been having problems with this. Well, we solved this. That's the way that you get respect, and that's the way that real science operates. It really works fast if you have a free interchange of ideas. And I think that probably Chinese scientists don't come enough to international conferences in the rest of the world. And we also don't go to enough conferences in China. That's absolutely certain. I mean, there's something of a language barrier, but these days, so many people in China speak better English than I do, that I think that that's no longer a problem, right? When I first went to China, I think in about 1991.
1991, you have come to China?
Yeah, I was in
Oh, we are
Beijing in
impressed on that.
1991. Yeah, and it was very rare to hear someone that spoke English. It was basically just people in the hotels and in the tourist industry. But now, that's changed enormously, and there's no hope that Americans will learn Chinese because we're just horrible at languages. But now that the Chinese speak such good English, there's really very few barriers for more and more scientific interchange, and I think that would be beneficial to us and beneficial to you.
Oh, I agree on that. I think we also need to awaken our awareness on the anti-aging research or to the industry of longevity.
Yeah, I know very little about what's going on in China. Very
That's
little, and I'm sure there's very good stuff going on there, but I just don't hear about it.
so yeah, we also still continues to develop ourselves, since that we are at the starting point or a very initial stage for Chinese anti-aging research. So I also
Right.
agree on you that in the future, our Chinese scientists need to go global to, concentrate on participate in the international conferences and show our domestic research as well as make cultural communication with the foreign scientists. to develop
That would be great.
going global.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Can't wait for that to happen.
So although not willing, our interview needs to come to an end. It's just really appreciated that you could accept our interview and output so many fruitful perspective and fabulous interpretation. It will leave me endless aftertastes. I mean, well, now let's come to an end. 可以切出了。
All right. Very good. Bye. And thank you. It was fun talking with you.